So yeah, let's begin with support vector machines. So in support vector machines, we are this is the outline of support vector machine. We'll be starting with discriminant function. We'll be defining what are discriminant function, why are they called so. Then we'll delve into the two class classification. So which is the basic classification. There are two classes, let's say C1 and C2, how to classify them, the given instances. So inside two class classification, there would be support vector machines. The two parts, one would be hard margin classifier, one would be the soft margin classifier. Soft margin classifier would be using something called slack variables, and then we would be delving into kernel functions and how can we use kernel function to increase or enhance the power of support vector machine. Like we would be jumping from lower dimension to higher dimension using basis function. So yeah, cool. So we would be covering that as we go. Then we would be covering multi-class classification. Though yesterday in the introduction we covered something about multi-class classification, how to convert two class classification into multi-class, but today we'll be also covering that in a bit more detail, and then finally we'll be wrapping up with summary. Cool. So let's begin with discriminant functions. First of all, we define functions g of jx. So this j is denoting the class j. So let's say there are three classes, C1, C2 and C3. We define three functions, G1 of x, G2 of x and G3 of x. So what should you do? I would provide you one example x. You should import that example into the three function and you would obtain the values. Say G1 of x we obtain 0.5, G2 of x we obtain 0.3 and G3 of x we obtain, let's say, 0.2. Now the sum is here 1, but it is not necessarily should be 1. Okay. Now what you would do, you would find the maximum of this function. So we are getting 0.5 as the maximum, so g of 1 is the maximum amongst g1, g2 and g3. So next step would be you should assign c1 to example x. So what you did, I gave you one example x, you evaluated the three function values and you took the maximum of them and assigned that class. Since this function g is discriminating amongst the class and is helping us to assign the input instance into one of the classes, we are going to say g of x to be a discriminant function. Cool, simple, it's there in the name only. Let's move ahead. There are a few examples I have given of discriminant function. Let us cover the linear discriminant function first. So let's say g of j x wj comma wj naught. What are wj and wj naught? They are simply parameters. So j belongs to the class j. So we are defining gj of x to be wj transpose x plus wj. Straightforward. Now again, what you are going to do, if I provide you x, you will evaluate this for all the classes, find the maximum, assign that class to the input instance x. Clear? So here I have given one note, storage is going to be order of d, big O of d. What does this mean? So let's say the input instance x is having d features or is a d-dimensional vector. Now wj would be then a d-dimensional, so that wj transpose x works, basic matrix multiplication stuff. So let's say there are finite number of classes, let's say 5 classes are there, c1, c2, c3, c4 and c5. So the total storage space would be 5 times storing one such w. So it is going to be order of d, that is nearly about 5 times d. Similarly, if we see the quadratic discriminant function, so there will be one new input parameter also, w of j, capital W of j, and there is one term added so that it becomes quadratic, x transpose wj x. This is something very familiar, you should be x transpose some matrix into x. Now again, what you would do, I will provide you x, you will find g for all the classes and whatever is the maximum, assign that class. Now there is one note again, the storage is going to be order of d square, provided wj is a d cross d dimensional and x should be d dimensional. Fine. Okay, let's move ahead. This was the basic definition of discriminant function. Now we are delving into the main part, that is two class classification. Before going into support vector machine, let us see one wonderful result. Now I said that if there are 4 classes, C1, C2, C3 and C4, you are going to have 4 functions like G1, G2, G3 and G4. So what I want to say is one of the function is redundant in this two class classification. Say there are 2 classes, C1 and C2, and there are 2 functions for each of the classes, G1 and G2. Now what you would do, I would provide you x, you would evaluate g1 of x, g2 of x, whichever is maximum, assign that class. Straightforward. Now let me let me devise one new linear function, I mean one function, then we'll show that is linear. The function g of x be g1 minus g2. Now you can see fairly simple straightforward algebraic manipulation. Club the terms with similar terms, club the similar terms, you would obtain w1 minus w2 transpose into x plus w1 naught minus w2 naught. Now if you replace, so let's say w1 minus w2 be w and w1 naught minus w20 to be another bias term w0. Now, okay, so I gave you two linear functions g1 and g2. I am taking the difference and I'm obtaining another linear function. Wow, that's wonderful. Now let us see if this function can help us to discriminate or not. Okay, now what you should do, you should find g1 and g2. If g1 is greater than g2, then you would assign class 1. Now if g1 is greater than g2, then what is g? G is also greater than 0. Simple, g of x is g1 of x minus g2 of x. So if g1 is greater than g2, then g of x is greater than 0, then we are going to assign c1. Cool, straightforward. Now if g of x is less than 0, then what would happen? g2 is greater than g1, so we should assign c2. So what we are getting? We are getting a new linear function g of x, a single linear function g of x, which is able to discriminate class 1 and class 2. You give an input x, I will evaluate g of x. If it is greater than 0, then I will assign c1, else I will assign c2. So we saw that a single discriminant function is doing the entire job. We don't require G1 and G2. Cool enough? Now, so let us define hyperplane. In crude layman term, we can say that in a two-dimensional space, so a straight line can be considered to be hyperplane. Okay, so if you go to a 3 dimension, then a plane, simple plane like 3x plus 4y plus 5z equal to 3, something that kind of that. A plane can be considered to be a hyperplane in 3 dimension. So in higher spaces, the planes are called to be hyperplanes of that dimension, but we are not going into that. 2 dimension and 3 dimension are very easy to visualize and also help in understanding. Now, if you remember from basic vector algebra or 3 dimensional coordinate geometry, those of you who have covered. So if a hyperplane, let's say g of x, is given as w transpose of x, then if I provide you any point in the space, say x dash, then what would be the distance of that point from hyperplane? It would be just input that point into the function and divide by the mod or the norm. So what it would be? W transpose x dash by mod of w. For those who are unable to capture this, let me provide you in an example in 2 dimension. So let's say a line is there, 3x plus 4y equal to minus 5 equal to 0, let's say. Now if I provide you point 1 comma 2, what you are going to do? How to find the distance of 1 comma 2 from this line? You would input this point into the hyperplane, that is in this case the straight line, and then divide by 3 square plus 4 square root over. If you can see the similarity, then w is here 3 comma 4 and x is going to be x comma y to obtain w transpose of x. So just remember this, the final result. If a hyperplane is given and you want to find the distance of a point in the space from this hyperplane, what you should do? You should put that point into the hyperplane and divide by the modulus. Simple, straightforward, cool, enjoying. Let's go ahead. Okay, now let us see one picture actually that would help us to understand. So there is a picture here. So forget all the jargons that have been written everywhere. Just forget that, just see and focus on the picture. So there are two classes, C1 marked by dots, I mean circles, and C2 marked by crosses, X's. Now I provide you these two classes, C1 and C2, and I ask you to provide me a hyperplane, that is in this case a straight line, which is going to separate these two classes. So what should you do? You have to just find a hyperplane, and once you understand gradient descent algorithm, which you are going to understand in future classes in artificial neural network, most probably. So what you would do? Let the parameters be w. Then your first task is to find a loss function with the help of that w. And once you find that, you can use gradient descent to update the w and find the optimal w value. So what I'm trying to say is w is the parameter. For instance, we start with 3x plus 4y equal to 0. Then my w is 3 comma 4. Then I will provide a error function. So here the error function can be the summation of the number of misclassified points. That is just one example. You can take any error function. So I'm not going into detail of that because that is not relevant exactly to the case of SVM. Now, if you have an error function and if you have the error function in terms of the parameter, then you can use the gradient descent algorithm to simply update the parameter and obtain the best optimized parameter. So this is that mathematical line is nothing but simply the gradient descent update rule. W new is equal to W old minus the learning step time the gradient. Okay, cool enough. Now let's move to support vector machine, the main agenda of today. So we are equipped with the necessary tools and techniques. Let's fight it. So support vector machine, what we do? We are going to again define a hyperplane. Simple. We are going to design a hyperplane, but along with it, we are going to design two margins for two classes. And our aim is to keep as much distance as possible between these two margins. So if we see the picture again, so here is the picture. Okay, cool. So this is the picture, that middle line, the bold line, this one. I hope you can see my cursor. Even if not, then this bold line, not the dotted line, are called g of x equal to 0 or the hyperplane. And the two dotted line you are seeing, you are able to see, those are called the margins. So what is our aim? Our aim is to keep as much as distance between these two margins. Clear? So let me revise. What is support vector machine? It is simply designing a hyperplane along with two margin and keeping as much as distance possible between these two margins. Okay. So let us move to the problem statement actually of two class problem. So let the problem given by x equal to xt comma rt. So what is xt and rt? Xt is the input instance, the set of input instance. For instance, let's say xt to be a three-dimensional figure, let's say height, weight and age. So each of xt is going to be a 3 r belonging to r of 3. Okay, so xt is the input instance and rt is the label. So for each input instance, there is a label. SVM is a supervised algorithm. Now, I'm taking RT to be -1 and 1, but in most cases, you'll be seeing 0 and 1. Why I'm taking -1 and 1? Just to make the maths ahead easier actually. Okay, so there are two classes, -1 and 1, and there are set of input instances xt, and each xt belongs to a d-dimension. Each xt is a d-dimensional vector. Cool, this is the training instance. Now let's move to the picture. If you understand that picture is mother of everything. So understand that picture, you are cool enough to work with super SVMs. So what does this picture say? Let's see the text in the left side. So let me consider rho to be the distance between the hyperplane and the margin. Okay. Then the rho is the distance between that dotted line and the middle line. Okay. So for any point xt belonging to C1, class 1, we can easily say that I have highlighted also, we have the distance of xt from hyperplane is going to be greater than equal to rho. Simple distance. Okay. Now how to find the distance of xt from hyperplane? We just studied that it is going to be just put that point into the hyperplane divided by the norm. So g of xt by mod of w is going to be greater than equal to rho. 2 points are covered. Now let us, so what is our aim as of now? That we have to maximize this rho. Why maximize rho? Because rho is the distance between the hyperplane and margin, and we are trying to maximize that. So since rho can be any real number, so we are doing a simple trick kind of here. Let's say rho into mod of w equal to 1. Then what you are obtaining? G of xt is greater than equal to 1 for every xt belonging to C1. These three steps are entirely from simple analysis of distances. So we obtain g of xt is greater than equal to 1 for every xt belonging to C1. So if you have a copy beside you, just jot down some points. It actually help you to move through the entire thing. So as of now, what we have, g of xt is greater than equal to 1 for each xt belonging to C1 and rho into mod of w equal to 1. Now our aim was maximize rho. Thus, this means that we have to minimize mod of w. That's it. This is the entire SVM. We know the constant. We know what is to be minimized. The objective function. Cool. Let's move off. So if you have understood how we are getting g of xt greater than equal to 1 for each xt belonging to class 1, then it is exactly symmetrical for class 2. It would just be g of xt is less than equal to -1. Okay. Because all the points here C2, they are going to be negative. Fine. So if we see ahead, so this one is nothing but what we just found out now. For each rt equal to 1, we have this g of x is greater than equal to 1. And this thing is g of x is less than equal to -1 if rt equal to -1. Cool. From this two, we can see that rt into g of x is greater than equal to 1. That's it. This is the constant for SVM. And if you remember, we just said that we have to minimize w. So we have to minimize this w square by 2. We are converting into a square so that it becomes a convex optimization problem quadratic, and there are certain results available with it. It's actually it actually sees beautiful. Okay, so this is what is we have to minimize, and subject to this is the constant for alt. Now this is, those of you who are familiar with linear programming, you can say that this is the objective function and these are the constants that we have to work upon. So I'm not going to detail of that. So our main aim was to understand what the SVM is, how to find the constant, how it is working exactly. So it is just minimizing the w square by 2 subject to this kind of constant. Now those of you who can know who know how to convert primal into dual, then you can form the dual of this instance and you can solve using Lagrange multipliers. Now this is called hard margin classifier. Why is this so? We'll understand it after soft margin classifier. So I hope this was clear. So let me just recap it a bit. What we did, we designed hyperplane, found the margin, found two margin, and tried to maximize the margin as much as possible. We tried to push them to maximum extent till it cannot be any more pushed. And then we did some simple distance analysis to obtain the constant and the objective function. So cool. Now that was really wonderful case. This picture you can see and say that it is a beautiful picture. Now if I go to another picture, now you can see there are points like 2 and 3. 2 is a cross, 3 is a circle. 2 belongs to C2, but it is on the wrong side of hyperplane. And 3 is a circle. It is on the right side of the hyperplane, but between the hyperplane and margin. So the ideal case should be what I wanted. That cross should be Tata bye bye to C2 side, and this circle should be moved and thrown away to C1 side. But our lock is not that so good, and we have landed in such a horrible position. So what I try to do, I would try to assign something called slack variable. What is exactly slack variable? So slack variable is the distance of the points from the hyperplane, which will signify the penalization I would giving them. So if someone is deviating a lot from its margin, then I will penalize it more on the basis of slack variable. So slack variable is simply the distance of the point from the margin, from the respective margin. So for 2, we are going to take the distance from g of x equal to -1. For 3, we are going to take its distance from g of x equal to +1. Cool enough? Slack variable is understood. So what we have to do? Let's see the text written below it. So if you are able to understand, that's well and fine. If not, then that's also okay, not a problem. Just remember what slack variable is. Now for all the points which are on the right side of the margin, correct side of the margin, then what we can say that the slack variable for them should be 0, because I should not penalize it. What exactly is slack variable? I am designing the all this slack variable so as to penalize something, penalize the instance. If the instance is already in the right side, then there is no point in penalizing that, correct? So if all the crosses which are on the right side of the margin and all the circles which are on the correct side of the margin, I should not penalize them. For all those instances, s or the slack variable should be 0. But let's see the point 3. What is the distance of 3 from the margin g of x equal to +1? It is equal to 1 minus g of x. Now why is this 1 minus g of x? This distance from this bold line to this dotted line is 1, and the distance of 3 from this line, this g of x equal to 0 equal to g of x. So this is going to be 1 minus g of x, and this distance similarly is going to be 1 plus g of x. So for all the points which are on the wrong side of the margin, wrong side of the hyperplane, please listen carefully. For all those instances or points which are on the wrong side of the hyperplane, for instance here 2, the input instance 2, we are going to penalize them with some slack variable greater than 1. So their slack variable is greater than 1. For all the point which are on the correct side of the classifier, I mean correct side of the hyperplane, but between the margin, I wanted them to be beyond the margin, but they're between the margin. So I should say that, okay, you did some mistake. I will penalize you a bit, but not too much. So their slack variable is going to be between 0 to 1. So the main takeaway of this is this note which I've written. The slack variable for the points which are on the correct side of the classifier are, I mean correct side of the margin even, are going to be 0. If between the margin and hyperplane but on the correct side, like I have shown you 3 in this case, it should be between 0 to 1. And for all the very bad guys, the worst of the all, like 2 which are on the wrong side of the hyperplane even, we are going to penalize them with greater than 1. Cool enough? Now our constant and everything are going to change a bit, so keep calm and okay. So our constraint is going to be rt into g of x is all right, should be greater than 1 minus the slack variable, and its slack variable should be greater than 0. Cool enough. Now I am introducing the slack variable to penalize them. This is the main tagline or the hashtag thing you can say. I'm introducing slack variables for penalization. Okay. So let's say I define this slack variable. So I have to add it into the objective function. So this c is some penalty factor. I would just repeat it again. Forget about the c. So I'm penalizing them with c times the summation of the slack variable. Cool enough. So take a deep breath and think. So what we have to do, we have to just minimize the objective function which has been modified with the old thing plus c times the sum of slack variable, and the constant have been modified to rt times gx into rt times gx greater than equal to 1 minus slack variable, and as discussed all the slack variables should be greater than equal to 0. Wonderful. Now again, those of you who know how to convert into dual and solve, this is simple. Convert into dual and solve it. Now I skipped one part, that is what the hell is C? Now, okay, C is the penalty factor. Now it has been termed as penalty factor. Let us consider what would happen if C is very less or C is very high. Now C is the penalty factor. So let's say let's say that this point 3 or this point 2 are having slack variable S2 and S3. I mean eta 2 or eta 3, but eta is a horrible thing to say in the live thing. I'm saying S2 and S3. So S2 and S3 are the slack variables. So I would penalize them some C times the slack variable distance. So C into S2, and 3 is going to penalize by C into S3. Now consider the C to be very less. If C is very less, just imagine I am penalizing them too less. I am not penalizing them very much. I'm just penalizing them like 1-2 rupees fine I'm giving. So what would happen if the margin extends a bit also, like the margin, like the distance between the margin, even if it increases, then the total penalization is going to be small. So what would happen? The margin distance increases. Cool, because I'm not penalizing much. So even if 2-3 stuff come into it and become wrong, 2-3 instances are wrong, not much is being penalized. So the total objective function, which is the minimized stuff, is going to be small. Now consider the next case. If C is very high, if C is very high, then even if something is so near to margin but not on the correct side of the margin, for instance this 3, consider this 3 to be very close to margin but not beyond the margin, then also I am penalizing it very high, C into S3. So C is, let's say, 10 power 7. So what would the margin try to do? The margin is extremely sweating now kind of. So the margin would come close to each other so that very few labels or very few examples are misclassified. Cool enough. So if C is very less, then just imagine, and you will see that the margins can be far apart, no problem, because less penalty. But if the C is very high, then the margins will try to come close to each other, and so that the penalization factor or the total penalty is going to be small. Cool enough. Now we have covered substantial portion of SPM. Cool enough. I don't know why I'm saying cool enough, but yeah, I'm extremely okay. So now this is going to be soft margin classifier, and the explanation image A was hard margin classifier. Why is that hard? Why is this soft? This is soft because we are allowing some slack variables, like we're allowing it to move beyond the margin, not stay confined in the margin, but we are penalizing it. So we are kind of saying, yeah, you can roam freely, but if you cross the boundary, I am going to penalize you. So this is like soft. I am kind of soft in my heart. Okay, you can roam around. But in the hard margin classifier, if you see, no, you have to stay within the margin. So that's extremely hard and strict rule. That's going to be hard margin classifier. Cool. So let's move to the next part. I hope till now you have grasped a lot of things. You are feeling enthusiastic. I don't know. I am full of euphoria. I'm euphoria. Okay. Okay. So now kernel functions. Now, if you've understood those two things, then you are thinking like, okay, I can allow slack variable and I can find the hyperplane. Cool enough. Or even if slack variable is not allowed, then I can design a hard margin classifier and I can find the hyperplane. So what the hell is the necessity of this kernel function? I don't know that, because all the pictures that we have seen till now, they can be done well within soft classifier or with hard classifier. Now, okay, let's see. Imagine something. So imagination is everything now. See the let's imagine all the points belonging to class C1, that is x belongs to C1 if the distance of x from the origin is less than 1. You should be able to imagine. And consider all the points x belongs to C2, class 2, if if the distance from the origin is greater than 1. So you're able to imagine x belongs to C1 if the distance of x from origin is less than 1, and x belongs to C2 if the distance of x from origin is greater than 1. So they are kind of circles you can think. Now if I ask you to design a hyperplane in this two dimension, I mean you have to design the line. So if I ask you to design the hyperplane with margin in this case, then oh no. Even if slack variable you allow, they are not going to make it possible. So you can think and see that, okay, if I design a circle with the boundary to be x square plus y square equal to 1, I mean the circle whose radius is 1 from the origin, then what I can say, yeah, then that boundary is able to classify it perfectly. But that circle is not a hyperplane in two dimension. So what you have to do? Now comes the use of basis function. Okay, now I provide you the point 1 comma 2, then you map it to the point 1 square plus 2 square, that is equal to 5 in the 3 dimension. So I am moving into the 3 dimension. Okay, now given a point 0.1 comma 0.2, then you would map it to 0.1 square plus 0.2 square in the 3 dimension. So now for those of you guys who can understand or who can visualize it properly, imagine the hyperplane z equal to 1. I mean simple, the plane z equal to 1. Okay, so that plane is able to divide the entire thing into two parts. Clear? Z equal to 1 is able to divide the entire thing into two parts. Cool enough? So just rewind everything and think. So all the points x belongs to C1, they lie below z equal to 1, and all the points x belongs to C2, they lie above z equal to C2. And that hyperplane is existing in the 3 dimension. But there was no such hyperplane in the 2 dimension. So that great takeaway from here is, if you are unable to find something in the given input dimension, just elevate them to higher dimension and you might be able to find some hyperplane which are able to classify it properly. Okay, so if you have understood till this, that's fair enough. So this transformation, like given a point, make it 1 square plus 2 square, take that value. This is the kind of transformation, which means if I provide you phi of x, where x is a two-dimensional, x comma y, then phi of x would be x square plus y square. So these are called basis function, which help us to move from lower dimension to the higher dimension. Okay. Now, if you've understood till this, the power of leviating to higher dimension transformation, that's well and fine. The next two line, that is the kernel function and gram matrix. If you close your eyes and wake up when I complete this slide, this current slide, I mean symmetric and positive indefinite, you would be perfectly fine. You would be able to work, no issue. So now for those who are interested in thinking about kernel function, what exactly kernel function is doing? If you know how to form the dual, so let me reveal. When you try to solve the dual, you are going to obtain inner product between two different instances. For instance, let's say two instances are xt and xs, then you are going to obtain xt transpose into xs in the dual. Now if you allow basis function to be used, then in the dual what is going to happen? You are going to take phi of xt transpose into phi of xs. Now that computation every time makes it tough. Now that kernel function does the same thing. What the kernel function does? Kernel function is a function. You throw into that function two things, xt and xs. It will give you or throw you out the output basis function transpose into basis function. Fine. Now what does gram matrix do? Gram matrix actually contains all these entries. Now you can see k of ts is equal to k of st, so it is symmetric. I'm not going to detail, that's mathematics and everything. So if you have got the intuition that we can leviate the power from lower dimension to higher dimension, and these are the kernel function definition, you have learned a lot of things. Yeah, to be truthful, you have learned a lot of things. Now coming to the few example of kernel function, so you can just see it and that will be perfectly fine. So sometimes in sigmoidal people use tanh, and most of the cases are sigma. So sigma function is used, sigmoid function is used. those are not covered here, they will be covered later. So just think about radial basis function to be e to the power and polynomial degree to be x transpose xt plus 1. So I'm speaking jargon, you can just do a plus out of everything. You can just see this slide, that's okay. Now, let's take one more deep breath. We have covered a lot of material. It was wonderful. So let's think again. What is SVM? We design a hyperplane, design the margin, try to keep as much distance as possible within the margin. One case is the hard margin classifier. The hard margin classifier is because we are not allowing any penalty, no slack variable. The soft margin is allowing the slack variables. And the third is the elevating and enhancing the power of SVM by taking them to higher dimension, the kernel functions. Yeah. Okay. Now is going to be multi-class classification. Now we have studied two-class classification in high depth. Now go to multi-class classification. So there are two approaches here. One is the one versus one. Another is one versus rest. Cool. Now one versus one. If you read the text only, that will be perfectly fine. You can understand everything from here because I am going to read the text kind of. Okay, so in one versus one, what you're doing, you're designing a hyperplane for each pair of classes. So let's say there are three classes, cow, duck and buffalo. I don't know what kind of classification would be this, but okay, cow, duck and buffalo. So I'll be designing classifier between cow and duck and buffalo and cow and buffalo. So that is one versus one. I'm designing three classifiers. So if there are k classes, I'm going to design case choose two classifiers, and it will generally be faster. Why? Because I'm using a subset. While I'm training a hyperplane for cow versus duck, I'm using the training dataset which contains cow and duck. I'm not using buffalo. Similarly, when duck versus buffalo, I'm using duck and buffalo only. I'm designing a hyperplane between them. Okay. But in case of one versus all, or in case of one versus rest, so what is going to happen? We are going to design a classifier considering one class as one and the entire rest of thing as other. So stop this jargon, go to example. Now let's say cow, duck and buffalo. So what is going to happen? I'm designing a classifier or hyperplane between cow and duck and buffalo combined as another class. This is one hyperplane. What is the second hyperplane? It is going to be duck and cow and buffalo another. Understood? So this is the one versus rest. Here what is going to happen? You are going to take a lot of computational time and lot of computation resources because I'm using entire data set for training each and every classifier. So if there are k classifiers in one versus rest, I'm going to train k minus one classifier. Then I'll find the labels and whichever is maximum, I will assign that only. Cool enough. This is multi-class classification. Okay. Now coming to the summary, the final part. I hope you have I hope you have enjoyed it. I myself have enjoyed it sharing with you. Now coming to summary. So SVM, we have studied how to find SVM, the hard margin classifier, a linear classifier, hyperplane, designing the margin, increasing the space between them, increasing the distance between the margins. Then we can take it to non-separable classes, linearly non-separable classes by using slack variables, penalty, slack variable. I hope these things are into your mind. And the third is the use of basis function to map into higher dimension from lower dimension. That example of class C1 and C2, where C1 is the class of all the points which are close to origin, less than one distance, and C2 is all the points which are away from origin, greater than one distance. So we understood this: hard margin, soft margin, slack variables, penalty factor, and kernel function. So yeah, and uses SVM being a supervised algorithm. Why supervised? Because we know the labeling for each and every instance, XT and RT also. It can be used in face detection, text and hypertext categorization, mostly any kind of supervised algorithm you can say. Just find the features, provide it into the algorithm, it will do its job. Okay. So yeah, I hope. Okay, one more thing. So I have taken two images there, two beautiful images I should say, because they are kind of, if you understand those two images, SVM is like cakewalk. So those two images are from this book, Introduction to Machine Learning by Ethem Alpayathan. So this is actually a great book for beginners, but you have to have the fair bit of mathematical knowledge to handle this book. So yeah, you can try out if you want. So thank you from my